Okay, I finished my final round and I'm starting on the heel. I have changed my yarn and now I'm going to slip stitch over the next 3 spaces. The reason that we're doing this is because we sort of have a center back seam here. Mine's pretty tidy, but sometimes you might see a seam, in which case I want to keep the heel centered with that seam. So we're just very loosely, going to slip stitch, oops, this is getting heavy, slip stitch over the next 3 chain 1 spaces. And I'm keeping this very loose so that we don't pucker up these stitches. And all that's doing is it's just bringing my yarn over to where I need it to be. Okay, so we're going to do a chain 1 and then we're going to turn our work. And then what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet and double crochet into the one we skipped below. So what this is going to do is just create a nice even row that we can start our heel on. Okay, so we'll just continue along, do that. And the heel is really simple. I think you're going to be surprised when you get to this part how easy it actually is. And I've still got my yarn pulled towards the inside. Okay, I'm going to go over here. Those are just our seam stitches that we're skipping over now. We're going to do this, repeat the single crochet, double crochet, and skip stitch below until we reach 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we're going to do one more. Now the next part that we're going to be doing is we're going to actually start to shape our heel. So we're going to go on to row 2 and we're going to single crochet in the first stitch and we're going to skip the next. And we're going to pull these stitches fairly tight because we don't want any gaps in the heel. We're going to work across until we get to the second last stitch, which we're going to skip over. That's my second last stitch right there, and we're going to work in the last one. And so we've just decreased from 12 stitches to 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so you can follow the pattern from here, and I'll meet up with you when we get to sewing the heel into place. Okay, so I finished the last row of my heel, and what I'm going to be doing is sewing the right sides together. This is your right side of your stocking, so this is the right side of your heel. You're just going to fold this over, thread your needle. You can see I've left a pretty long tail, maybe longer than I needed, but it's always better to have more. And we're just going to sew this back and forth, closed. And I'm going to show you a little cheater trick that I do because I hate weaving in ends, and this sort of prevents it. So I'm just taking a very small seam allowance here because we don't want it to become misshapen. And I'm taking little tiny stitches. Okay, so I'm actually just going to thread this through my stitches all the way along. I'm just carrying my yarn over to the other side, and I'm not going deep because we don't want to change the heel. I'm just running it across the top of the stitch. Okay, so we're just going to go right to the end here, and voila, I'm on the other side. And I'm just going to sew up this side. That's where my yarn, there's a little imperfection in it that drives me nuts. Make sure that our seams are nicely lined up. Little tiny stitches. feel like I should be playing Christmas music in the background. Okay, and just this last one. Okay, you're going to make sure that's nice and tight so that your heel doesn't come unraveled at any point. And we're going to weave this in. There we go. Okay, and then I'll just clip that off, and I will secure that later with some fray check. I like to use this to keep my stitches in place, and it stops them from moving. And we're just going to flip that right side out, and look at that. We've made our heel. How cool is that? So we're going to move on, and I'm going to show you how to join up here. And when we're working these corners, it can be tricky, there's no doubt, because we have open spaces here that we're trying to close up. There's times that I'm crocheting a bit tighter and they close as I'm making the stocking. However, I did make a stocking the other day, and when I went back there was a real big space. Rather than ripping it all out, all I did was I went back in with my yarn and I closed that space up with a stitch. And you can't see it when you do that. It's an invisible way to mend it. And if I end up with a hole here, I will show you how to do that. Okay, so we're just going to grab our green yarn, and I'm just moving my pattern up here. And we are going to start the foot. So we are going to be counting from the right, and it might be easier for you too if you had stitch markers put in the ends of these stitches, because you're going to be joining your yarn, and you want to make sure that you're joining it in the right stitch. So we should have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is your first and this is your last stitch. So we are going to join it at stitch 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is where we're going to join. And I'm going to join with green because you can see I went green, white, red, and it's green again. So we're going to join with the green. And we are going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to start working it just like we did the rest of the pattern. This counts as our first chain double crochet, so we're going to skip the stitch here and we're going to work the double crochet into this one right here. So that's 1, 2, and this is where it becomes tricky. Where do you work these stitches? So, and sometimes I have to go back and forth a little bit on this pattern, but you can see here this is actually your first skipped one. You have a stitch in here, you have a stitch in here, and you're working in the right row, so that is actually where you're going to be working. And we're going to work into the last single crochet here. Chain 1, and then you're going to be jumping all the way down here. And I like to work this stitch nice and tight, and sometimes I'll even make it a double crochet, or sorry, a half double crochet. I'm just going to continue around here. Okay, so it's easy peasy from here. You're going to work all the way around. And so I'm going to come back and I'm going to meet you when we're joining this stitch here. Okay, so I've just finished the first round and I'm about to join up and change my yarn. So we are going to join right here, and I am changing now to my white yarn, which actually I'm going to clip off and rejoin. Also, I recommend in the pattern that you count your stitches at this point. If I'm going to gain stitches anywhere during this pattern, it's going to be when I do that first round in the heel. Normally, you should have 34 stitches, so you would have to go back and recount them, and if you've picked up stitches, you've probably picked it up in here. So make sure you only have 34, and remember that the first the first 3 chains count as your first chain double crochet. Okay, so I've just joined my cream yarn, and I'm gonna now be working round 2, and I'm just gonna go all the way around and work in the stitch that I missed below. Okay. And this time when we get past the heel, oh my goodness, it's a busy house today. We are going to be working into the red stitches. Okay. Oh wow, this is crazy. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. So I've worked in here, and now I'm going to be working down into that red stitch right there. Okay. And you're just going to work all the way around. And like I said, if you're having problems or you find this pattern difficult, working it in 3 colors makes all the difference. It just makes it so easy and clear to see what stitches that you should be working into. So I do recommend that if you haven't had luck with the first time around. But this is my most popular pattern, and I have probably had maybe 10 emails with questions, and that's not a lot. So, but I know that there is a lot of people that like this pattern and they want to try it. They're just not sure if they're going to be able to do it. So hopefully this tutorial is enough to help them with everything. Okay, so the rest of the rounds up until round 9, just carry on exactly like this, and then I'm going to meet up with you and we'll do the toe. Okay, thanks. Okay, I just finished round 9 and we're going to begin with the toe. I've joined my green yarn and I'm keeping the right side of the stocking facing me. So we're going to start to close the holes here of the chain 1. So we're going to proceed with the single crochet, double crochet in here. And we're going to repeat that one more time. Then the next one, we're just going to place a double crochet. And we're going to start dropping stitches in this round. And the reason I've done that is because we're going to start to close the toe, and I wanted a little bit of the texture to remain as we start to close that up. Otherwise, we're going to have to work too many rounds, and you know, the toe just won't look as nice. Okay, so I have 5 stitches here, and I'm going to repeat that process 4 more times. So we're just going to go in here, double crochet below, do that twice, oopsie, and then I'm just going to work the double crochet. Okay, so I'm going to meet up with you because the rest of this part is very self-explanatory, and I'll just meet up with you for the closing of the toe. Okay, so I finished up the toe and I've turned my stocking inside out, and at this point we're going to be sewing it closed. All we're going to be doing is weaving the needle in and out of the toe just like we would as if we were closing a hat. Just like this. And also what we're going to do, and this is very obvious, when the stocking's turned inside out, we're going to weave in all the ends from joining the yarns and whatnot. Okay, so we've pulled it closed, and then I always like to just take a few extra stitches, not too deep, just on the edge there. See how you can see my needle still? And that just adds a little strength to the edge of the stocking, because someone's going to be stuffing this stocking full, right? Okay,